Rukpli Incursion 2 by Matt Edsand. Narrated by Matt Edsand. Chapter 1 UFS Shuttle Black Meridian. Captain Grisham stared out the viewport as his pilot took the shuttle down through the upper atmosphere of Black Meridian. The early explorers had identified the brownish planet as rich with a variety of minerals. This had led to humanity establishing its first mining colony in the Vanya system. While the colony on Black Meridian was another smaller one, its purpose was defined from the start. That singular purpose was vindicated when multiple mines were discovered on the planet's surface, and it surprisingly drew many settlers who wanted to work in the mines. A majority of those settlers belonged to Earth's population that had also worked in similar mines. Because of the attraction of the mines and the type of work it entailed, the number of settlers on this planet remained stable. Although a few people chose to eventually move to Ufra, the attraction of constant work kept the rest on the planet. Grisham opened the comms with his XO, Commander Lopez. Commander, have there been any updates from the settlement? Nothing, sir, but we did send down the information you requested and also who you needed to meet, Lopez replied. Affirmative. Anything I need to take note of? Prior to leaving the shuttle, Lopez had provided Grisham with a short summary of the planet and its key activities. Lopez hesitated. We just need to be ready for anything on the planet's surface. Grisham didn't ignore the concern lining his XO's words. Are you expecting they'll run into trouble? Ever since the appearance of the alien creature in New Caledonia, we just need to be on alert. I understand, Grisham replied and ended the comms. Grisham understood his XO was being cautious, which was the prudent thing to do, especially under the current circumstances. It had only been a week since an alien creature was released by the Rukpli in New Caledonia. That creature had killed one of the lieutenants on New Caledonia, causing the tension to arise across all the human colonies, including Ufra. News of the death had spread like a storm across the colonies. The UFS had tried to control the narrative, but it had been impossible. Ever since the Rukpli invasion and its aftermath, humanity was on the edge. Grisham shared those sentiments. He had overheard the chatter amongst his crew when he walked to the mess hall and back. Nonetheless, regarding the attack by the alien creature, Grisham hadn't gotten any updates. No one in UFS had been able to identify the alien creature. What was taking UFS so long to get it done? Grisham couldn't tell. He could only presume that the UFS had no records of such an alien creature. He had hoped they could have gotten the help of their new ally, the Rabinto species. However, even that may have failed. The lack of knowledge of other alien species in the Vanya system was a big hindrance to humanity. Someone had to start building a database of alien species in the Vanya system. If not, humanity would always be trying to play catch-up. Grisham suppressed a sigh. However, he was certain of one thing. The Rukpli officers had intentionally arrived in New Caledonia with one singular objective: to unleash the alien creature on the civilian population and create maximum casualties. No doubt about it. Even General Sheldon had agreed with his assessment. Yet humanity had no response to the new threat. As the shuttle continued its descent through the lower atmosphere, Grisham kept his eyes on the approaching barren surface of Black Meridian, which to his relief had a breathable atmosphere. Grisham hated spacesuits for many reasons, none more so than the fact that walking in a spacesuit was so restrictive. He couldn't understand how certain people found joy in walking in spacesuits. The pilot turned to him. Captain, we're coming in soon. Grisham nodded as he gripped his safety harness. The UFS Dauntless had arrived at Black Meridian 1 day ago. This was his first time visiting a mining colony. Once they had arrived in orbit, a comms had arrived from Sheldon that there were some discussions that he wanted Grisham to handle on his behalf with the local leader. Sheldon had then sent over some documents. Grisham had read and reread through the documents. It had to do with some renewal of contracts. He wondered why he was being assigned this job. It was an unusual task for a UFS captain. The surface began to grow larger by the second. Then, a shudder rolled through the shuttle. If not for the safety harness, Grisham would have been thrown to the floor of the cockpit. What's going on? The shuttle then banked hard to the left, pulling Grisham in that direction. We hit some turbulence, the pilot announced. Grisham frowned. He had never heard of such turbulence so close to the surface. The shuttle began to descend rapidly. It was like they were in a free fall. Hang on, Captain, the pilot yelled. We're going for a hard landing. Grisham gripped the sides of his chair. The surface rushed towards them in a fury as the shuttle skidded onto an open field. Then something jumped onto the view screen and began punching it. Grisham's jaw dropped. It was a thin alien creature with a large head and white glistening teeth. Chapter 2, Captain's Office, Black Meridian. Marine Captain Monroe stared at his console. He had received the comms an hour ago from Admiral Sheldon. The transmission had informed Monroe that a UFS shuttle would be arriving on Black Meridian soon. It would land on a planet's small base that had been established beside the community adjacent to the mines. Of all things, Monroe had been surprised that the landing party would include the UFS captain. That was unusual. Despite that, Monroe had informed Davidson, the local leader, who had also been stunned by the news. While UFS vessels did patrol up in orbit, it was rare for UFS captains to land on Black Meridian. A sound reached his ears. The door to his office opened and Lieutenant Rose stepped in. Monroe looked up at the raven-haired woman. "Lieutenant, I'm about to head to the landing pad for the incoming shuttle," Rose announced. "Yes, please bring the captain to my office," Monroe replied. "Sir, if I may ask." Monroe had an idea where this conversation was heading. "Go ahead, Lieutenant." "Why is the UFS captain coming down here?" Monroe shrugged. "I think it has to do with the contract renewals." "But why this captain?" Monroe had done a search on the Uphronet for Captain Grisham, but nothing of significance had appeared. He could only presume this was a newly appointed UFS captain, which would make sense. Most UFS vessels were now manned by new captains. "Your guess is as good as mine, Lieutenant. We just need to follow the Admiral's orders." Admiral Sheldon's transmission had made everything crystal clear. Monroe was to take the UFS captain to meet Davidson so that the contract renewals could be settled. Sheldon had been specific that it was a priority. Monroe had no plans to question the Admiral's orders. Rose saluted him. "I understand, sir." Dismissed. With that, Lieutenant Rose stepped out of his office. Monroe leaned back heavily in his chair, deep in thought. Maybe he was overthinking his whole matter. Captain Grisham's visit would probably be a short one, and once the contract renewals were completed, the UFS captain would return to his duties in orbit. For a split second, Monroe flirted with darker thoughts. Was Captain Grisham here to take over Black Meridian? Monroe was no fool. He had heard of the chatter amongst the community ever since the news of the attack on New Caledonia had emerged. During the first days, even an image of the human corpse, or what was left of it, had been floating around the Uphronet. However, after that, the horrific image had mysteriously disappeared from the Uphronet. The Euphra Defense Forces must have had a hand in it. It was probably for the best. Once the miners and their families had heard of the attack and seen the image, the community had been restless. A few of the senior miners had even approached him to discuss the security situation on Black Meridian. Monroe had done his best to reassure them that the attack on New Caledonia was an isolated incident and that there was nothing to worry about. Nevertheless, the senior miners hadn't been convinced by his words. That had forced Monroe to beef up the security around the entrance to the multiple mines north of the town. Monroe got the issue. The people were rattled by the attack. It was the first one ever since the Rukpli had withdrawn from the invasion of Euphra. Everyone knew one day the Rukpli would return, but no one would have anticipated that it would be like this. Monroe had read the briefings on the incident in New Caledonia. The Marine captain over there had highlighted that the Rukpli had come to unleash a new terror on the planet's residents. Monroe had told his unit to be on guard. He wasn't going to take any chances. Secretly, he suspected Black Meridian could also be targeted by the Rukpli. Then, his door burst open and Lieutenant Rose came rushing in, her breathing ragged. One look at her pale expression was enough to know something bad had happened. "What's wrong?" The shuttle with the UFS captain crash-landed on approach. Chapter 3, Unknown Position, Black Meridian. Captain Grisham shook his head as his gaze remained on the alien creature on the view screen. The creature looked like that of the one that had attacked the lieutenant on New Caledonia. Grisham turned to his pilot and sighed. The pilot's dead eyes stared back at him. Grisham counted himself lucky to have survived the crash landing of the shuttle. He didn't know if the alien creature had anything to do with the initial shudder on the shuttle. Grisham pulled on his safety harness, but it didn't release from his buckle. The alien creature was still trying to crack through the view screen. Fortunately, the view screen was thicker and harder than the alien creature had anticipated. Grisham swallowed hard as he pulled on the safety harness. He needed to get out of here. Fumes were beginning to reach his nostrils. It wasn't safe to stay in the shuttle. It might even explode. Then a clicking sound followed and the safety harness came out. Grisham heaved a loud sigh. The alien creature outside had stopped in its attempts to break through the view screen. Grisham's gaze fell on the claws on its feet. The alien creature opened its mouth and its sharp, razor-white teeth sent a shiver down Grisham's spine. Grisham had heard of what had happened to Lieutenant Troy in New Caledonia. He had seen the image. That horrific image had been seared into his mind. He had no intention of being the alien creature's next meal. Grisham gently got onto his feet The alien creature shifted his head and tracked Grisham like a predator. He turned around to check on the corridor leading to the hatch door. A scream reached his ears. Grisham turned. The alien creature was gone. Grisham tightened his jaw. The alien creature looked like a cross between an animal and a humanoid. Grisham opened the comms with his XO. "Captain, what happened?" Commander Lopez asked. Grisham updated his XO on his status. "Captain, stay there until you send down another shuttle," Lopez insisted. "I can't. There's smoke and sparks inside the shuttle. I must get outside." Lopez sighed. "Make sure you're heavily armed. I'll send an alert to the Marine unit in Black Meridian. They should be on their way." "Understood," Grisham said and ended the comms. Staying inside the shuttle was not an option. He walked over to the side of the corridor and opened a cabinet. Inside were the standard issue UFS weapons. Grisham pulled out a rifle blaster and inspected it. He then grabbed a belt of grenades. This would have to do. But would it be enough against the alien creature? Grisham dismissed the thought. It wasn't going to help him to linger on such thoughts. He needed to escape the shuttle and neutralize the alien creature. Grisham walked to the hatch door, carefully sidestepping the protruding cables. He had forgotten to inform his XO not to send any further shuttles to the surface, not until he had assessed the situation on the ground. One alien creature had attacked the shuttle and brought it down, but that was his assumption. There could be more than one alien creature roaming around Black Meridian. Grisham pulled out his device and sent a message to his XO not to send any more shuttles down. Reaching the hatch door, Grisham peered through the viewport. The open field beckoned him. A forest could be seen in the distance, but he didn't see any sign of the alien creature. The alien creature was out there, just waiting for him to come out. Grisham sensed it in his bones. The alien creature knew Grisham would have to step out of the shuttle. Grisham peered again through the viewport. No movement caught his attention. He found the shortest path to the forest on the left side. That would be where he could run to. He didn't know how fast the alien creature was. That was a risk he was going to have to take. Grisham took a deep breath as he pressed on the hatch door. As he gripped his weapon, the door slid open with a hiss. Chapter 4, Mine 1A, Black Meridian. George stood outside the entrance to the biggest mine on the planet. He had just finished his grueling shift and he was glad to get a bit of sunshine. Working down in the mines took a lot out of him. Nonetheless, it was work that paid for his life and that of his family, who lived down in Settlement B M1. He wiped the sweat off his brow with a cloth and then shoved it in his back pocket. Although they had machines to help with the mining operation, working down in the darkness was never easy. Klein walked up beside George and nudged him. That was a harder than usual shift. Tell me about it. Don't know what was different today. Maybe the heat? It's really killing me. Klein then opened his container and took a long sip from it. But why today? George asked. He and Klein had worked on the mines together for years. Today still felt different. George scratched his head. It felt like someone was blowing hotter air down in the mine. Klein lowered his voice. Do you think it's the Rukpli aliens? George shook his head. We aren't mining their Trebium on this planet. Our scans also indicated no Trebium deposits here. Despite that, George knew what Klein was hinting at. Everyone was on edge ever since the news of the attack in New Caledonia. Nobody wanted to say it out loud, but it was at the back of their minds. Every now and then when I hear sound in the mine, I stop and touch my weapon, Klein mused. All the miners had been given weapons since news of the Rukpli Incursion had emerged. It was the only thing the Marine unit in charge of the settlement could do. George flicked his eyes at the two Marines guarding the entrance. Their presence gave some reassurance to the miners. But if an alien force attacked Black Meridian, these two guards would be far short of what was necessary. George even doubted the entire Marine unit stationed near the settlement would be sufficient. He dismissed those thoughts as he took a sip from his container. Then he noticed a sudden shift in the two guards. One of them walked over to the other and began talking in hushed tones. Klein must have sensed the same shift. What's going on? George grimaced. I don't know. What he intentionally left out was that something was going on. The body language of both Marines had changed for the worse. Then an explosion ripped through the air. It was coming from deep inside the mine. Chapter 5, Bridge, UFS Dauntless. Commander Lopez sat down in his chair. He never felt so helpless. His captain was down there in a downed shuttle, and an alien creature was roaming about the area. It was obvious that the Rukpli must have released this alien creature in Black Meridian. There must be something he could do to help his captain. Lopez had been unhappy when Captain Grisham had received the orders to head down to the surface. However, the orders had come directly from Admiral Sheldon. Lopez was in no position to question the Admiral's orders. Nonetheless, it shouldn't have been the captain who needed to go down to the surface. Lopez could have done it. The renewal of contracts was a small thing. Why did Admiral Sheldon insist on it being the captain? Especially after the attack in New Caledonia, it was more important than ever for Captain Grisham to remain on board the vessel, not down there on the surface. Lopez suppressed a sigh. Lopez opened the comms to the pilot in the hangar bay. Is the shuttle ready? Yes, Commander. Wait for my orders. Yes, sir. Lopez closed the comms. Although Captain Grisham had clearly said not to send another shuttle to the surface, Lopez had prepared one, just in case. He had wrestled with his thoughts over launching a shuttle. What harm could come from being ready? Of course, there was the issue that he was going against his commanding officer's orders. But would that even matter if his captain died on the surface of Black Meridian? He was in command of the USS Dauntless. His captain was facing a life-and-death situation. He couldn't just stand around and let things unravel. Being an inexperienced XO, he had no one to turn to for advice. Flicking his eyes around the bridge crew, Lopez knew each of them were equally inexperienced. The sensor officer turned to him. Commander, you need to see this. Lopez got up from his seat and walked over to the sensor officer's station. I managed to tune the sensors to identify the position of the downed shuttle, the sensor officer explained, clicking on his console. The display at his console changed to reveal a green dot. Lopez immediately noticed a red dot close by to the green dot. That's the problem, sir, the sensor officer said. I also adjusted the sensors to pick up any non-human life forms. Lopez picked up on the implication. Are you saying the red dot is the alien creature? Affirmative. Lopez gritted his teeth. Where's the captain? Still inside the shuttle, but I believe he's about to step out. Lopez opened the comms with Grisham. Captain, we got eyes on your position. The alien creature is 100 meters to your right. Thank you, Commander. Grisham replied. Let me know if it moves. Lopez turned back to the sensor officer. Keep the comms with the captain open and send him whatever he needs whenever that creature moves. Yes, sir. Wait, I got something else. What is it? Lopez growled. The sensor officer pointed to the right of the display. 2 more red dots were advancing in on the shuttle. Lopez didn't hesitate. He opened the comms to the shuttle pilot. Lieutenant Wilson, launch now. Affirmative, Wilson replied. 3 alien creatures against 1 captain was horrible odds. Captain Grisham wouldn't survive the attack. He didn't know where all these alien creatures had come from, but it appeared that the Rukpli had done their work in Black Meridian. Chapter 6, Outside Marine Base, Black Meridian. Captain Monroe stared outside the screen of the transport pod as Lieutenant Rose pressed on the console. The transport pod lurched forward as it headed out of the base. Move faster, Monroe growled. He couldn't believe the UFS shuttle had crash-landed outside its base. He didn't know the detail yet, but had received a comms of an attack on the shuttle. I don't understand who attacked the shuttle, Rose said, as she continued to navigate the transport. It's an alien creature, Monroe said. Like the one in New Caledonia? Monroe offered a reluctant nod. He didn't know how it had happened, but somehow the Rukpli had come to his planet and unleashed the terror. Sir, we didn't even detect any Rukpli, Rose said. It was a massive breach. Monroe didn't want to mince his words. The failure was a big one, and now they were dealing with the repercussions. Rose turned to him. I'm getting reports of an explosion at one of the mines. What? It just came in, Rose replied nervously. Get some of our men and women to the entrance of the mine, Monroe ordered. It wasn't a coincidence that an explosion in one of the mines had happened at the same time as the assault on the UFS shuttle. What's going on, sir? Rose asked. It's a coordinated attack. Keep moving to the shuttle site. A few minutes later, Rose brought the transport pod to a halt at the site of the crashed shuttle, or what remained of it. The shuttle had exploded into pieces. Monroe gritted his teeth. He put on his armor and got out of the transport with his rifle blaster. Rose came up beside him. Do you think the captain escaped? Monroe pointed to the footprints on the ground. I believe so. Let's follow this. Chapter 7. Unknown Position, Black Meridian. Grisham stared from within the forest. He was breathing hard. Despite that, he was relieved to have made it behind the tree line. The moment he had gotten the news of 2 more alien creatures advancing towards his position, he knew his time was up. Grisham had then leveled his weapon in front of him and broken into a run. As soon as he had done that, a howl had pierced the air. During his run, he had been tempted to release a grenade but had resisted the urge, knowing that the alien creature was in pursuit of him. At the same time, he heard an explosion. The shuttle must have exploded. Grisham peered in the direction of the shuttle. No movement. That was strange. He was sure he had heard something chasing him. Where was the alien creature? Then he spotted a figure on the ground of the open field. The alien creature must have been caught up in the middle of the shuttle explosion. Grisham didn't flinch. He threw 2 grenades at the creature's body and opened fire to it. The alien creature didn't have a chance. The alien creature's body went up in flames and it slumped to the ground. Grisham heaved a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. Then another howl pierced the air. His body stiffened. The other alien creatures were close by. He turned and looked around. There was no way to know which direction to go. He couldn't go back out to the open field. He would be too exposed. He doubted he could outrun two alien creatures, especially in the forest. The dense foliage would slow him down. He looked up at the towering trees and began to climb the tree. His boots dug deep into the moss-slick bark as he hauled himself up the tree. The faint sound of the clicking from the claws began to reach his ears. Every muscle screamed in protest as he climbed higher. The sound of snapping branches intermingled with those of the claws. Grisham estimated more than one alien creature was approaching his area. They must have been drawn to this vicinity by the explosion. Reaching a branch 30 meters above the surface, he stopped, slung his legs over the bark, and pressed his back to the trunk. This should be enough. Grisham peered down through the tree branches. He saw them. Two alien creatures. Thin bodies and big heads, just like that which had been described by the Marine captain in New Caledonia, and just like the one who had attempted to crack the shuttle's view screen. But how was that possible? It appeared like the Rukpli had kept these alien creatures as prisoners, buried for a while across different planets in the one-year system. What was the reasoning behind that? Grisham couldn't tell, not right now. Grisham didn't move, he didn't breathe. The two alien creatures had stopped at another tree and were looking around. Then both alien creatures turned and looked at the open field. Grisham tried to gaze in the same direction but was blocked by the other trees. Despite that, something had spooked the alien creatures. One of them began walking towards the open field while the other remained. Grisham realized an opportunity had opened for him. He pulled out his weapon and aimed it at the alien creature. Grisham knew he was going to get only one shot. He had to make it count. He targeted the alien creature's head. Grisham tightened his grip on his weapon and fired. At the same time, an explosion ripped beyond the forest. The alien creature turned its head slightly. The streak of weapons fire hit the alien creature on the back and it stumbled forward onto the ground. Grisham sighed. He had missed the alien's head. Grisham pulled a grenade and threw it in the direction of the alien creature. He then began climbing down the tree. In the distance, the sounds of weapon fire reached his ears. He presumed the reinforcements from the Marine base had arrived and were engaging with the other alien creature. As the grenade explosion lit up the forest floor, Grisham landed on the ground with a soft thud. His eyes scanned the terrain. No movement. The alien creature was out there somewhere, probably injured but still deadly. A whimper reached his ears. Grisham broke into a sprint. Reaching the tree where he had last seen the alien creature, Grisham stopped. A trail of blue blood was on the ground. Grisham looked ahead. The alien creature was trying to run away. Grisham followed the trail of blood. He then came across the alien creature crawling on its stomach. "Stop, or I'll shoot," Grisham hollered. The alien creature stopped and turned around. It scowled, its teeth glistening. Grisham aimed his weapons at the creature's mouth. It was time to finish it off. "Please wait." Grisham's eyes widened. The alien creature was talking to him. He hadn't expected that. "You can talk?" Grisham asked in disbelief. "We were once like you, before the Rukpli changed us into these killing beasts. Find our kind. There are others." With that, the alien creature slumped backwards. It was dead. Chapter 8. Mine 1A, Black Meridian. George stepped aside and coughed. A large plume of smoke emerged from within the mine. One of the soldiers came up to him. "You need to step away, sir." George glared at him. "There are men and women down there. We can't abandon them." "I just need you to give us space," the soldier said. "Reinforcements are on the way." "It may be too late," George said. Klein came over and motioned to him. George grumbled but walked away from the entrance to the mine. "Can you believe those men? Don't they get it? They're just following orders," Klein said. "We both know how that works," George said. "We served before, but these young ones are too rigid." Another explosion could be heard from deep inside the mine. That was followed by a horrific scream. It sent shivers down George's spine. What the heck was that? Klein shrugged. It came from a human. What else? I don't know. A man came running out of the mine. His shirt and pants were in shreds. George recognized the man. It was Jeff. George waved to the man and he ran over to them. His eyes were filled with terror. George put his arms on Jeff's shoulders. "Take a deep breath." Jeff nodded and kept coughing. Klein passed his container to the man. "Take it easy," George said, watching the man carefully. Jeff took a few steps and coughed again. He then wiped his mouth and looked at George. "You're not going to believe what's down there." "What are you talking about?" George asked, noticing one of the soldiers standing closer to them. That thing was killing our people, Jeff stammered. George frowned. What thing? The alien creature, Jeff replied. It's inside there. It killed Wallace and Riley in front of my eyes. It came for me, but I managed to barely escape it. The soldier standing beside him motioned to the other soldier and they raced towards the entrance to the mine. Neither soldier made it far. Two spear-like objects hit each of them in the chest and they collapsed to the ground. Then a blue-skinned alien creature walked out of the entrance to the mine. Jeff panicked and raced away. Oh my gosh, Klein whistled. It's the same one as that from New Caledonia. We need to fight it, George growled. Klein looked at him with a crazy expression. We don't stand a chance against it. George ignored him as he picked up one of the soldiers' weapons lying on the ground. He aimed it at the alien creature who was still standing around and looking about menacingly. George then fired the weapon. Streaks of weapon fire hit the alien creature. It howled in pain and then raced away. I can't believe you did it, Klein said. Then the sound of a vessel's engines reached George's ears. He looked into the sky as a UFS shuttle passed them and began targeting the alien creature. Multiple missiles shot out of the shuttle which flew in the direction of the alien creature. George raised his hands as explosions ripped all around the alien creature, killing it instantly. Is it dead? Klein asked nervously. George raced over with Klein to the alien creature's body. Stopping at the edge of the dead body, George studied it. It's dead. Despite that, the alien creature had inflicted mass casualties within the mine. He expected most of the people inside the mine were dead. George shook his head in dismay. Now what do we do? Klein asked. Once the Marines get here, we better find the dead inside the mine. George sighed. Chapter 9. Marine Base, Black Meridian. Captain Grisham stared at the papers that the middle-aged Davidson had signed. The two of them had just finished the final negotiations in a meeting room. The local leader of the settlement looked visibly tired, and he had every right to be. He lost a group of miners at one of the mines. Is that all? Davidson asked. Grisham offered a single nod. That settles it. I'll send the documents back to you, Fro. I have a question for you, Captain. Sure. Why did the Admiral send you down here to renew the contracts? Davidson asked. I mean, you nearly got killed. Grisham shrugged. We just follow orders. But I did find out some crucial new intelligence on those alien creatures. That was unexpected but important. Davidson arched his eyebrows. Even at the risk of your life? I know it sounds crazy, but that's the life of a UFS captain. Davidson grunted. How's the community? The deaths at the mines shook everyone to the core, Davidson replied. It's going to take a while for us to heal. We've closed that mine and created a memorial beside it. I don't think we'll be going back into that mine for a while. Captain Monroe told me that his unit searched the mine and found no evidence of any other alien creatures. Davidson scoffed. I know, but the problem is that no one knows how the alien creature even got into that mine in the first place. That worries me. Grisham nodded. Davidson got to his feet. Thank you for renewing the contracts. It will go a long way to bringing more stability to this community, and we will continue to do the mining operations. There's plenty of people ready to help despite the tragedy. I hope you guys can stop this new menace. Davidson then walked out of the room. There was a knock on the door and Monroe stepped in. Captain, take a seat, Grisham said. Monroe sat opposite him. I assume everything is done because Davidson didn't say a word when he left the room. He's still trying to come to grips with the attack on the community. So am I. I don't know how the Rukpli got onto the planet and unleashed 4 of those alien creatures. Grisham shook his head in dismay. Black Meridian is a large planet. The fact that there were 4 such creatures means that the Rukpli are expanding their attacks. So you think New Caledonia was a test run? Possibly. We won't know much until we capture one of these alien creatures alive. Monroe frowned. Are you serious, Captain? Grisham nodded. I've spoken to Admiral Sheldon and briefed him on what that alien creature told me. He agrees with me that the UFS and the UFRA Defense Forces must work together to capture one of the aliens. It's the only way to find out more information. If we can find out how many more are buried and the locations, that'll help us get ahead of this problem. You believe what that alien creature told you? I have no reason not to believe it. If not, why would it need to tell me that information? For whatever reason, that alien was able to talk and let me know some valuable intelligence. The Rukpli aliens are worse than we ever imagined, Monroe scowled. If they're holding other species as captives and changing them, it's like slavery. That wouldn't surprise me at all, Grisham said. The Rukpli did enslave the Rabinto in their homeworld. Monroe gave a single nod. There's nothing stopping them from doing that or worse to the other species. And it looks like they've done it to this alien species. Is your unit going to be able to manage the community? Euphra is sending me some replacements for those men I lost at the mine. That should be sufficient. There's one more thing. Yes, we found 4 craters outside the perimeter of the settlement. That must have been from where the alien creatures emerged. Grisham eyed the Marine captain. The death and destruction left by the alien creatures was going to remain a scar in the hearts and minds of the community. Black Meridian will never be the same. Chapter 10, Captain's Ready Room, UFS Dauntless. Commander Lopez sat across from Grisham. His XO had done a fine job while he had been on the surface. Commander, how's the vessel? Grisham asked. All departments report that everything is operational, Lopez replied. We'll be leaving Black Meridian tomorrow and heading to the next planet. Lopez nodded. But that's not why I called you here. I've received instructions from Admiral Sheldon that we need to capture one of the alien creatures. Lopez's eyes widened. Grisham suppressed a chuckle. His XO hadn't expected it, which was a good thing. Grisham hoped that the Rukpli would not expect such a response from humanity. Lopez lifted one eyebrow. You think there'll be more attacks on other colonies? Absolutely. The Rukpli are trying to create terror amongst the smaller colonies. That is their intention. I do believe it's working Lopez's side. There's been quite a lot of chatter amongst the crew. I'm not surprised. That makes it more vital to catch one of the alien creatures. Captain, it's not going to be easy. I know. The Admiral is sending us a Rabinto to help us with the capture. Rabinto? Grisham nodded. I'll take any help I can get. Lopez nodded, stood and left his room. Grisham looked at the next planet his vessel was heading to, a bigger settlement. He had no doubt the alien creatures would make an appearance there. The end.